What's up, everybody? I know you guys love my stories, and boy, did I remember a good one today. So, this was back in Naples. I was remodeling my house. We're living in a camper. Here's my house in the front. Behind it, I parked a camper, and we're living inside this camper because I'm building my house. We had started putting, drywall, and it was just kind of like a box, really. It wasn't really like completely there. Now, this neighborhood, if you've ever lived in a bad neighborhood, you know what I'm talking about. If you went outside at 2 in the morning, sometimes we'll be sleeping, sirens, 3 or 4 police. Sometimes you wouldn't even hear the sirens, you would just hear the police cars. Boom, sirens, lights. We'd walk outside and there'd be people walking in our yard, cars that had crashed, people that were hurt, people fighting, people running. Like this neighborhood in Naples where I lived was always popping off. So like there might have been in over the period of 10 years, we might have seen 60 or 70 times police on that street, and maybe 7 or 8 times the SWAT team. Yeah, no exaggeration, this neighborhood was always popping off. All types of wild stuff. Sometimes we'd be inside the house and we would see on the ceiling like the lights from the ambulances going or whatever. And it was just one dead end street off of US 41, but it was always popping off. So we're hanging out in the house, sleeping, whatever. We're inside the camper. Now the whole house was closed in, but there was this one little section where there was an AC cutout. You could get in through the house through there. So I'm sleeping in the camper, and there's a helicopter over my head. Whenever there was action, I would go outside, record it or whatever, put it on Facebook. That was before I was really big on YouTube. I would put it on Facebook so all my friends could see it because it was like an ongoing thing, So I hear this helicopter. I go outside, and I kid you not, there's a helicopter, like literally over my house, and it's got a light shining. So I walk outside. I'm like, yo, I'm trying to sleep, bro. Like, get out of here. I told him to leave. I threw rocks at it, and I was like, yo, get the crap out of here. I'm trying to sleep, bro. And I'm not surprised because my neighborhood, and I was in like the worst section of my neighborhood. Like all the bad stuff that would happen within like a quarter mile of my house was like the worst part of the neighborhood. Funny story, but the reason I met Katie is because when I first met her, there was so much bad stuff going on in the neighborhood that she was like, we have to tell you guys the story of how we met one day. But the day I met her, she saw me. She was like, hey, can you stay here longer? Because she was so scared of what was going on in the neighborhood that she didn't want to be there by herself. So she had moved into the neighborhood and she wanted me to stay there. So that's how me and her met, because it's like that. But anyways, so this neighborhood's like always popping off, and we're like used to it at this point. It's like normal. I go back to sleep, and again, here's the helicopter. Literally over my house. Like over my house. It's so I'm like, all right, this is two. I walk outside, and here's this helicopter again. But this time I put on my shoes. I was in my underwear the first time. Put on my shoes. I want to see what was going on. So I look down the street, and there's like 2 or 3 cops. But what I did was I figured, well, since the cops were over my head, let me go out to US 41, come back around the back, and see if behind the house there was something going on. And there's police cars everywhere. The whole area was swamped out with cops. It was just cops everywhere. So I came back into the house, and I was like, you know what? Let me check inside the house and make sure there's nobody in there. So I walk through that little AC cutout hole, and I got a flashlight on me. Look this way, nothing. I walk all the way to the end, and there's no door. Now keep in mind, there's a helicopter over here. There's police cars over there. There's cops running. I can hear cops running through the woods with flashlights. So they're obviously looking for somebody. And I walk into the bathroom, and there was this shelf that I had. And there was like there's a bottom level and a top level. And underneath this shelf was this black dude, like inside my house. So when I put the flashlight on this dude, it was like, can you imagine like somebody inside your house at night? This dude ran from the cops, and he had hit a robbery or something. I don't know what he did, but it was serious enough to where they were looking for him. And he was inside of my house. I had a machete on me. That's what we use in Florida. In the more primitive places, we don't really use anything else. I know in other parts of the country it's different, but in South Florida we use that because the state laws are kind of complicated. and there's a whole bunch of other complexities to it. So you can have, in Florida, you can't really open carry, but you can carry a machete outside and walk around with it because it's not, whatever. When that's all I got on me. That's it. Just that. Put the flashlight on, dude. I am so scared. My heart's like, someone inside my house. So here's this dude inside of my house. Now, he thought because I knew him that this was cool. And I was like, look, bro, I don't know what you did, but you got 10 seconds to get up out of my house or you are done. Because the state laws in Florida is if you are inside of a house, you can do whatever you want at that point. Especially at night, inside of somebody's house, you're done. This dude, I could have really, Now, it wasn't the first time that I had run up into these people with a machete. The first day that I met Katie, she asked me to stay over that night because there was people going around her house and looking through the windows. And I actually caught the dude doing that. Me and Katie were inside the house. I had somebody else that were my friends scope out the house from far away, and they said the dude's looking into the backyard, and I caught the dude. And the only thing that saved this dude was that he could run faster than me because I really was going to chop this dude up. But he got away. But we get home late at night, and here's my fence in my driveway. And there's an ambulance, 2 police cars blocking my driveway. So I back up into my neighbor's front yard or whatever. And I'm looking back at my house, and here's these police officers and cops and ambulances. And this dude had a run-in with this lady. This house was a big problem house. These people were always having problems. And the lady had ran up with a hammer. So after the dude runs away, I wasn't really feeling like I wanted to sleep. I just kind of walked around the neighborhood and just kind of, after that, you're up all night, all this is going on. So I'm walking around the neighborhood, another dude from the neighborhood who's no longer around, he calls me, hey, yo, come here, Jose. Hey, yo, you know what's going on, man? This did that. I was like, yeah, he was inside my house, and I chased him with a machete. And he's like, man, Jose, you're a real one, or whatever. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back inside the house. My neighbor on this side had eventually made his mailbox had got ran over so many times because there was a bar behind our house called Jack's, and people were always drinking there. So like they would leave, and they would run, instead of leaving out to US 41, they would turn into our street, and they would pretty much ram mailboxes. So my neighbor decided that he would pour a concrete mailbox. So my neighbor's mailbox, I kid you not, was like this big, like the size of you ever seen like the big water heaters? I mean like the 80 water heater. It was like an 80-gallon water heater. That was his mailbox. And cars would hit it all the time. And we would be sleeping and we'd just hear, yeah. But because his mailbox was concrete, it would be people, this mailbox, I'm not kidding you not, this mailbox, after he made it into a concrete mailbox, and he literally, probably over the years, 5 or 6 cars were totaled on this mailbox. Because when they would leave Jack's bar, instead of getting on US 41, they would turn into our street. Sure enough, his mailbox was always getting hit. His mailbox was hit by something monstrous because it fell. Now, I had seen several cars that were eventually disabled by this mailbox, but finally it must have been like a semi-truck or something, and it was gone. So one night I'm sleeping, beep, beep. So this means that an accident had already happened across, right outside my house. Accident's already gone down. Now they're just doing the cleanup efforts. But this tow truck, I hear the tow truck. I'm like, beep, beep. Okay, somebody crashed into the mailbox. No big deal. But then it doesn't stop. An hour passes and I still hear this tow truck out there. I'm like, this must have been something special. So I run out there And on the other side, if you were to leave, instead of our street, you went the other way, you would have hit, there was a fire hydrant. Don't ask me how. Somebody managed to launch a Dodge Charger. The thing about launching your car over a fire hydrant is that you can't get it out, because once that fire hydrant is inside of your wheel well, like here's the wheel of the car, here's the engine block, the car somehow, maybe I don't know how he did it, but he hit this fire hydrant and he somehow managed to get the fire hydrant between the wheel and the engine block. And the fire hydrant's kind of like popping off the fender and the hood. The tow truck could not unstuck this car from the fire hydrant. Usually, the driver would flee the scene. In the state of Florida, if you flee the scene and leave the car, you will not be arrested for DUI because you can't prove that you were drinking and driving. You can just, your car somehow ended up on a mailbox next to a bar. I can't sleep because there's tow trucks, engines, and every time they back up, you hear the noises. So this whole thing's going on the whole night, so you're not gonna sleep. Another time, there was another car in the ditch, and I just helped that guy remove the car out of the ditch. One time, Katie's boss was doing the same party scene. Now, I'm driving through a neighborhood in North Naples. It's a dead-end neighborhood. There's no reason for anybody to be in this neighborhood, really, because it's a dead-end neighborhood. I'm driving around at 2 in the morning looking for scrap metal because it was Thursday night. Her boss. Now, this guy was not a guy we liked. This guy was a jerk. One of those bosses that act, you know what I'm talking about. Horrible boss. Well, this dude having a little too much, and he drove his car into a ditch. Now, the car wasn't like really stuck, but he wasn't really bright either, so he couldn't get it unstuck. I pulled a rope, pulled him out, got him out of the ditch, and ironically, I actually knew the person who owned the house because it was somebody I had worked for, so I don't know how he was going to fix it between them, or if they had cameras, or I don't know what. I just pulled him out of the ditch. Doesn't matter if you have cameras. Doesn't matter if you fence in your property. Doesn't matter if you get metal bars on the windows. Doesn't matter anything. When you live in a bad neighborhood, the people around you are going to find a way to make your life as miserable as theirs. Maybe one day I can tell you guys stories about dealing with the SWAT team in our neighborhoods and all the multiple reasons why they ended up there.